Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is Gabnet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of talk radio. Political opinions have been a staple of radio since the early 1920s. Talk radio as a listener participation format has existed since at least the mid-1940s. WMCA New York's Barry Gray was bored with playing music and put a telephone receiver up to his microphone to talk with band leader Woody Herman. This was soon followed by listener call-ins. In 1948, disc jockey Alan Courtney began a call-in program on WGBS Miami. The Alan Courtney Open Phone Forum was a conservative and anti-communist political forum with coverage area over the southeast United States and Cuba. In the 50s, Joe Pine, John Nebel, and Gene Shepard were among the first to explore the medium. In recent years, talk radio has gained popularity with many new formats flourishing, including all sports in 1986 with the birth of WFAN New York. The subject matter for these formats are different, but the structure has remained the same for all these years. You might say talk radio is a 20th century format, until now that is. It's 2014. And radio pioneer and innovator Alex Bennett introduces the Citizen Panel on Gabnet, the first revolutionary idea in the format since its inception. The Citizen Panel allows for an open discussion to take place between the host and many listeners all at the same time. Listeners claim that it's addictive, producing stimulating discussions on any topic from politics to movies and entertainment. It's not liberal or conservative. It's open to all opinions and ideas. Log on to gabnet.net to listen and find out how you can participate. Listen to the programs on Gabnet and take a step into 21st century talk radio. Gabnet's creator and founder, Alex Bennett, is always looking for ways to stay on the cutting edge. He first revolutionized commercial radio. He built a career on being one of the first to speak to the new generation of the 60s. Then he reinvented himself on morning drive radio, where he was the first to use a live studio audience and guest comedians each morning. Another ratings winner. Next, Alex took off for outer space as he brought his unique perspective on politics and news to the satellites. Always a pioneer, his next stop was to create a unique format that no one else had ever done, with citizen panels on the internet. What's next? Is there any place left to innovate? Are there any stones left unturned? Introducing Gabnet Live on Roku. That's right, Gabnet Live on Roku. No lies, because you can't lie on the internet. Gabnet is now available on your TV. You can listen to Gabnet's 24/7 network stream or browse your favorite Gabnet shows from the archives, just like on gabnet.net. But that's not all. You can also watch video of Alex's archived live stream TV programs, as well as his televised Friday night Ramble. It's all there for you, and all you have to do is turn on your Roku device, search the Roku store for Gabnet Live, and add the channel to your lineup. Then sit back and enjoy. It's Gabnet Live on Roku. Thanks, Alex.
Hi, everybody. This is Alex Bennett asking you the musical question. What are you doing every Tuesday through Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern Time? Well, that's when we're live with The Ramble. And The Ramble is a program of deep, thoughtful discussion, sometimes just wacky and goofy. It's always fun, it's always exciting, it's always stimulating. It's a lot of people just talking with each other. Yes, we call them a citizen panel. And we have like upwards to 9-10 people. Sometimes we call it a full house, sometimes we call it a royal flush, and beyond that, just call it sheer madness. Anyway, I'd like you to join me each and every Tuesday through Friday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time until midnight for The Ramble, right here on Gabnet. Now more than ever, talk like you've never heard it before.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is Gabnet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey! Hey, everybody, this is Alex Bennett. You can't see me yet. You know why? Because I've got my hands over my eyes, so you can't see me. But this show goes on until midnight Eastern Daylight Time, and we will get to our citizens panel, and we'll get to the video visage of me. But, of course, we got to talk to an old friend tonight because he helps us talk for a half hour and say something meaningful. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Larry Bubbles Brown. Now, somebody last night said they wanted to have a, you know how today they have like audio clips that you can use to use as the ringtone on your phone,
right?
You know, and whatever. And they said they would really love to have one of you saying hooker. And neither of us, and the audience wasn't laughing. They didn't know what it was about. And so for that woman who wants a ringtone, would you say the word hooker?
Hooker.
Okay, there you go. That's for Renee.
Hooker. I think that's the way it was said when we did the show out here with you.
Do it one more time.
Hooker.
Now, you have to explain. See, it's all in context. Like, he used to have, like, one-word jokes. Like, butter. Do your butter.
Butter.
Now, why was butter a joke?
Butter was a joke that your old friend, it was a punchline to an old David Feldman joke.
Yeah.
And we thought the joke was so bad, and the way he said butter, we started saying butter, and suddenly every comic in San Francisco was just saying, instead of saying hello to each other, you go butter. And to this day, people still say butter.
Now, do you remember the joke?
The joke was,
because I do.
It was about someone who was very fat that was doing cocaine.
Yes, and the line.
What was his cocaine cut with? Butter. But who was the fat guy? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was maybe Monty Hoffman. I have no idea.
Monty Hoffman. No, it was somebody national. It was.
Yeah, but what's he cutting his coke with? Butter.
Butter.
You know. And it was one of those jokes. It was one of those jokes you tell where the punchline is walked into. You know what I'm talking about? It wasn't just like, what's he cutting his coke with? Butter.
Butter.
Yeah. So you would then, out of a clear blue sky, just on the radio show, on stage, just go butter.
Yeah. If I drew a blank, I just butter.
I didn't know every comic was doing it.
Yeah, everybody. Everyone would greet each other that way.
Yeah, yeah.
People still post it on Facebook. I'm like, every time I go on Facebook, John Means always has a picture of butter. He just puts butter. So it's 30 years later. It's still rolling around.
Now, how is he doing? You know, he was. Do you know what his claim to fame is? He was the first comic I ever had on my radio show.
The first? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Slayton came second, if I'm not mistaken. But I was at the KMEL, and somebody said, this comic would like to be on your show. And I said, what's his name? He said, Dr. Gonzo. I said, oh, well, let's do it, you know. And he became, I think, the first comic that was ever on my radio show in San Francisco.
Wow.
And then my boss said, oh, you like having comics on? Hey, there's this comic I know. He's really good, and he's a nice guy. I like him a lot. I said, what's his name? He said, Bobby Slayton. So Slayton came on, and then I said to Slayton, I said, know any other comics? He says, I know a guy named Jeremy Kramer. You know, and one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was up to my ass in comics for the next 11 years, 12 years of my life.
And that started the comedy boom here.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if I hadn't been there, the comedy boom would have happened anyway.
Probably would have, but you definitely accelerated it.
Well, I certainly gave it a platform, okay, to grow. Mm-hmm. It was, Yeah, it was a platform to grow. But the thing is that people say, like, well, if the Beatles hadn't come along, we would have never had all the music, blah, blah, blah. And I went, no. Something would have happened because there was time for a seed change, and it was just luck. They were just lucky enough to be the catalyst. And, I was lucky enough in that seed change in San Francisco where all of a sudden it became Comedy Town USA to be a catalyst in all of that. So, it was just pure luck on my part. It's not like I saw an opportunity or anything else. I just wanted to fill up 3-4 hours a day with something. And the comics would come in and fill up at least a couple hours of it. So, my show was important to the comedy scene in San Francisco. But if I had never happened to that town, something else would have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the comics were already there. They had all migrated to San Francisco because there was a viable comedy scene. And I simply gave it voice, all right? Gave it a public voice. But man, the comedy scene back then was just, I can't begin to tell you how.
It was pretty incredible. I didn't know Gonzo was the first. He's still around. You ought to talk to him.
Is he still doing comedy, or is he,
He moved back. He got out of it for a while, moved back to the Midwest, opened a restaurant, and now he's starting to do comedy again.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you can go back and do it again now. I at least comics from that age. I think it's a job you have to do when you're young. If you're doing it when you're old, it's because you were doing it when you were young. I mean, the guys we think of as older guys who are doing comedy who just came up in recent years, like a Lewis Black. When I was interviewing Lewis one day at Sirius XM, he said, I was on your show in San Francisco. And I said, no. He says, no, I was on your show in San Francisco. And I said, like this? He says, no, I was, have you ever noticed that comics?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I only learned this style. I can't remember who told him, but said, if you want to be a success, start screaming in your act. Start being in everybody's face in your act. He said, and that'll be successful. He said, but, the stuff you're doing, you'll be just moderately successful. So he started screaming. He started doing that outrage thing, and he said it paid off.
Well, that kind of makes sense when you think of Kinnison and Goldthwait.
Yep. Well, part of the reason is, and I've said this quite often, is that nobody wants to follow a screamer.
Mm-mm.
So you're going to be the opening. You're going to be the headliner, whether you like it or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, people said two things you don't want to follow: some guy who screams through his act, and some guy who plays an instrument.
Right.
Yeah, they're very hard to follow.
You can't follow.
So they automatically, immediately become headliners. No, Lewis told me, he said that was what I learned from somebody, was to start screaming. And so he said I started becoming outraged, and sure enough, all of a sudden my whole star ascended.
God, that really changed.
Yeah. But
he did well.
So I think maybe at this age you probably should start screaming.
Of course, at this age I'd probably have an aneurysm. So.
In case people have never seen you, well, they can go. They can go online and go to YouTube and look up Larry Bubbles Brown, and they'll see your set on Letterman.
Yeah.
It was a great set too, by the way. I mean, the second one you did, the first one you did was terrific too, but the one they'll see is the second one that you did 20 years later, because you're not aggressive at all.
No.
They said, you were really good last night, Larry. Give us a call when you got another good 5 minutes. And Larry called him 20 years later.
20 years later, yeah. I didn't want to be pushy.
And that second set, you were wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Well, the crowd, it'd be hard not to do well. The crowd's pretty lit up there.
Well, you see, what you never sold. Here's what you never sold. You want to know where your career went wrong? Can I tell you now?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Where your career went wrong was you should have sold your face. You know, when you did the Letterman show, I said, he's funnier close up than he is on a stage. Because you can see the face. You can see, it takes up the whole screen, practically. And you can see the expressions on his face. And it works. And that was...
That's what... someone used to tell me, because I always thought I did like some mugging and stuff, but it never seemed to show up in the club.
Well, it never showed up in the club because the reason it doesn't show up in the club is you're on a stage and the closest person to you is watching your entire body, and the person in the back row is basically seeing a dot on the stage. And that your comedy played best in close-up. My theory.
Oh, well, I better...
I'm sorry I didn't impart this to you when you were younger.
If I'd known that, I would have gone on stage with a magnifying glass.
Yeah, but I mean... You
could have kept me out of poverty.
Yeah, well, you've also never been aggressive either.
No. I got into comedy to... most people go into it to get famous. I got into it to escape a day job. I got to escape. I just wanted to get away from a day job and make a little money and be left alone.
Yeah, but I mean, you've never been aggressive about it. I mean, there's some people, they say, I like to talk about Durst as an example, who wakes up in the morning and starts making the calls, Yeah. He's aggressive with his career. And he's
not in your face aggressive, but like you said, he works really hard.
He works it. Yeah, he works it, and I think I heard him one day when we were doing our interview. He got a call or something, he had to take it, and I hear him with the guy, and he goes, "Well, I got to do this day because I have this date open, but I may not have it open long." He was like selling it. Mm-hmm. And that's why to this day Durst is working a lot.
Yeah,
he hasn't become nationally famous like I think he should, because but he certainly is a working successful comic. I mean, he makes a decent living.
Yeah.
That too, and he doesn't have any kids, which helps.
That will save you a lot of money.
It'll save you a lot of money. You wouldn't be living in that small apartment if you had had kids and gotten married, right? And you'd be worrying about, you'd probably be selling real estate right now.
And if I think I'm unhappy now, screaming kids, money going out the window. Oh my God!
Well, are you an unhappy person, Bubs? I don't think so.
No, I'm a closet optimist, maybe. I don't know.
A closet optimist.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. See, I'm a miserable person. I'm unhappy all the time. Drives my wife.
Know about that.
No, it drives my wife nuts. And being out of work for what, 4 years now or something like that, makes me even more miserable because I like to work. I do this.
Yeah, you should be working. So.
Well, I do this little show every night because this is my form of doing it, continuing to do it. And sometimes I say, I'm going to quit doing this. I am tired of doing this. I'm tired of, the smaller audiences than I was used to having in radio, and I'm tired of having to post the shows every night and do stuff like that. And then my wife said, if you weren't doing it, you'd be miserable. I said, I'm miserable now. So.
Well, we got to stay busy.
Yeah. Do you find that in your old age you're becoming a curmudgeon?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Very cranky.
Very cranky? Yeah. I'm cranky, too. I'm becoming that guy, that used to yell, "Get off my lawn."
Yeah, I know.
And I understand why now. Because I don't like kids on my lawn, okay? It's just, getting old ain't for sissies is what Betty Davis said. So what do you think of the world around us right now, Bubs? Are you happy with it?
I think it's overcrowded. I'd like to see the population go down a lot.
Yeah. More parking spaces.
More parking spaces. Politically, the world's always a mess politically. I don't know where it's heading to, but it's probably not good.
People say, "Oh, this is the worst I've ever seen." I think maybe Trump is the worst president we've ever had because he's just stupid. You know, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's an amateur at it, and he takes everything personally. All right, so he's probably the worst president as a president that we've had. However, we have lived in bad times. Vietnam War period, as an example, under Nixon. How terrible was that? And then you go back to the 50s when I was growing up. You had the red purges in our country. You know, with the blacklists and things like that. I've seen worse. I really have. You know.
And the Depression sounds like it wasn't not fun.
Yeah. The only thing that scares me about Trump is I have his friend Jack Garfein, who's 87 years old and was in 11 concentration camps. And I said, "What scares you about Trump?" He says, "I've seen this all before."
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that scared me. You know, it's I don't know. It's just amazing. So anyway, but no, I watch a lot of television. Watched a great documentary the other day on Malcolm X, who I've always liked. I always thought he was kind of a hero of mine because he was because he was uncompromising. You know, he said, you know, he put down Martin Luther King, saying, you know, this is a guy who takes money from white people for his causes. He says, how can he do anything right for black people if he's taking white people's money? And that's the kind of person I am. I would have said the same goddamn thing, and I've said the same thing about Martin Luther King all my life. That you know, that I never considered him a major hero in the black movement. I considered him a compromiser. And yet he gets a birthday, right, that we have to celebrate, and Malcolm X gets a fucking street in New York City.
Yeah.
You know? When Malcolm X was the guy who really was, you listen to these speeches. This was a documentary in which they didn't have any narration. They just simply did it through his speeches. And it was just amazing, the things he was saying.
I got to see that. That sounds fascinating.
And at the end, they play Ossie Davis doing his eulogy at his memorial service. And it is one of the most passionate speeches I've ever heard in my life. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. And he ends it off by saying, Malcolm was a prince. He was our black prince. You know, it was, and so it really pissed me off when I sat there watching it saying, this guy just has a street, because I live a block away from Malcolm X Boulevard. He gets a street in Harlem, and that's it. We should be celebrating Malcolm X's birthday. He was the guy who was really speaking to the black community. What?
Wasn't there some conspiracy theories about his assassination, too?
Well, no, he was... Well, there's always got to be a conspiracy theory about an assassination because by its own definition, an assassination is a conspiracy. They believe it was Elijah Muhammad because he was calling out Elijah Muhammad, who was the head of the what do you call it? The Nation of Islam, the black Muslims, as we call them. He was the head of it, and he said he left. He made a big deal when they finally firebombed his house. He said, well, I've never said this before, but the reason I left the Nation of Islam was because he had 8 children out of wedlock by 8 different underage girls. And he said, that's why I left the Nation of Islam. And shortly after that, he was killed.
Okay.
All right. Do you need a conspiracy theory here?
I guess not. We don't need a Warren report for that.
They don't need a Warren report for that, exactly. But I mean, he was brilliant. So I just think that that's the injustice in this world, that a guy who should have his birthday celebrated has got a lousy street in Harlem, that everybody still calls Lenox Avenue. So it's just, I hate about New York City are these honorary streets they give people in New York, because there's streets of people you never heard of in your life. Like one block between like 6th Avenue and 5th Avenue on what used to be 56th is now called something else. All right? Just a block. And when I walked by a block and it was Cousin Brucey Way. Cousin Brucey was a disc jockey in New York City. He still is. He's not even dead. I mean, you would think you'd name a street after a dead person, right?
He's got a block.
Yeah. Cousin Brucey Way or Kevin Brucey Lane or Street or whatever. And it's down this, right? It's between, it's something like 48th and 6th Avenue. It's not like it's off on a side street somewhere in Queens. Cousin Brucey Street. I'm going, what the fuck? He wasn't even the biggest disc jockey in New York City.
I think we need an Alex Bennett Boulevard. Hi.
Yeah. But that was a guy that probably woke up every morning and hit the phones. So that's why he's got a street.
Name a street after me.
If we're going to name streets after people, let's, Henny Youngman Boulevard, I could understand, But they never name them after comics.
No.
Wait a minute, but there is, are you ready for this? I believe the street that's the side street from where The Late Show was with David Letterman is called Senior Wences Way.
Really?
Yes. I mean, it has another name. It's like 53rd Street or something like that.
Oh, because he did the Sullivan show all the time.
But it's Senior Wences Way. Now, folks, you're scratching your head, right? You're going, who the fuck is Senior Wences? Tell them who Senior Wences was.
He was a ventriloquist who did this little catchphrase was, "It's all right, it's all right.
It's all right, it's all right." What he had was, he did a hand puppet.
It was a hand
in
puppet.
which he put lips on his thumb and his next finger, whatever that finger is, the forefinger, I guess. And then he would put a wig on top of it, and then it would be a puppet.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one was he had a box, and he would open the box, and there was a head in the box. And he would go, "It's okay, it's okay, it's all right, it's all right." And then he would close the box. And he had done maybe, 50 Ed Sullivan shows. Mm-hmm. And my father used to love Senior Wences. And
I think my dad did too. Yeah, I didn't quite get it, but my dad was just howling at him.
I got it. I whenever I saw Senior Wences, to this day, when I go Google them, folks, Google or YouTube, Senior Wences. There's got to be Senior Wences.
Well, you want an interesting fact?
Yeah.
This is very ironic. I just was reading an almanac the other day and looking at famous celebrities that had died, and he, you know how old he was when he died?
Tell me
103. 103.
I was going to say 103. He was 103.
Yeah.
Wow. He was a great ventriloquist. People love him. But anyway, there's a Senior Wences Way here.
Well, he deserved it then.
Usually they have the name of the street like 53rd, and then under it says Senior Wences Way. And it's like one block. But I thought that, I always thought that was wonderful. At least, they named one of these streets after somebody that I closely identified with and was a big part of my youth, because I still remember my father sitting there laughing his head off at Senior Wences. It's all right, it's all right. Close the box. That was it. Close the box. People are probably sitting out there going, I don't know what the fuck they're laughing about. But just go YouTube, Senior Wences. YouTube Senior Wences. I swear to you. In fact, if I can find it, I'll find a Senior Wences that I can play on the air and people will know exactly what I mean. Great ventriloquist. There are no such things, by the way, as a great ventriloquist, but he was. Because the rest of them are nuts. Even Edgar Bergen was crazy. Anyway, hey, we got to go. We've run out of time.
Time's flown by again.
This goes by really, really fast when I talk with you, and that's why I love talking with you, because it's a complete waste of time on both our parts, and it's...
Yeah, but you're the only person I know that would have known Senior Wednesday. So that's why I love to talk to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Bubbles, Brown.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
There we go. Okay. Hi, how are you? What's happening? Yeah, it's Alex. I love Bubbles. I just love Bubbles. I don't want to marry Bubbles, but I love Bubbles. I'm already married anyway, so I can't get married to Larry Bubbles Brown. Anyway, I'm Alex Bennett, and this is the gamble. No, the ramble. Believe me, it is a gamble. I can't do anything today. I am so fucked up today. My mind is like, everything I do just doesn't seem to work. You know? I mean, and then I can't remember how to do something. It's like one of those days. I think I had to take a Xanax and a half last night to go to sleep, because I spend half my time after I get off the air. I make the big mistake. I think I'll involve myself in a little project. And then, of course, I find out that the little project doesn't work. And then I'm worried about it. And then I got to solve it. And then I go lie down and I'm still trying to solve it. And my brain is going a mile a minute and I can't get to sleep. So I take the Xanax. And then that doesn't work. So I take another little half a Xanax. And before I know it, the next day I can't remember things. So today I was supposed to do an interview with Stephen Pearl, and I wrote him last night, and I said, don't forget, we're going to do an interview at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and what do you know? I completely forgot the call, and I feel terrible about it. I called him up. I was so apologetic. It was like, you know, if I could have sent him money or something, I would have done it, you know, just because I felt so bad about missing the call. And I think it was because it was really snowy outside. Girlfriend didn't go to work today because it was a snow day at her job. And so it was just, you know, me and her. And so it kind of felt like it was Saturday. So it completely slipped my mind. And also I was involving myself in a whole bunch of other things, like the things I was trying to fix last night that I couldn't fix last night, I was trying to fix today. And, oh, God. Well, that's it. It's starting, Rob. I'm finally, I think, losing it.
What happened?
I forgot to call Stephen Pearl today and do an interview with him.
Well, were you busy with the weather?
The weather had something to do with it. It was, you know, here's the other thing. So I decided I would do it once again. I stuck a camera out my window and just took a picture of a brick wall and snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Between the two times, because I could only go for 4 hours on Facebook before they shut you off, so then you have to start over again. Mm-hmm. Whereas, by the way, on YouTube, I could do 35 straight hours without being stopped. Okay. But anyway, so I then started it up again, and between the two, I had over 1,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, think about that for a second. I do this show every night, and I'm happy if I've got, 25 people watching right now.
Yeah.
Watching a brick wall with just snow falling.
What does that say
1,000 viewers.
What does that say about what viewers really want?
Well, I'm sure not all of them stuck around. It wasn't as though it was programming that would involve you. Hello, Tom Yamaguchi. I'm glad you got yourself a new computer because you look terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I forget to do things, and I was having trouble with my. We have two GabNet Roku channels. We have the regular GabNet Roku channel, and then GabNet TV channel, in which I put all the videos on. Although there are a lot of videos on the other one too, and all of a sudden I went on the other day. I hadn't looked at it in like 3 or 4 months. It wasn't working at all. So there was like one of the things was showing up, and it turned out that it wasn't reading files that were on my GoDaddy account. So I had to move them over to my other account. Something has happened between a couple of months ago and now, and the only thing is I added an SSL certificate. That's a security certificate. So when you go to the site, it says secure, and I think that may have done it. And so it's not reading it, even though the other hosting group has an SSL certificate, but it's theirs. My certificate is for my website. So I don't know.
Yeah, you don't really need one. The only really reason you need one is if people are putting in, like credit card.
Well, I don't know. I got a call from GoDaddy, and they said, well, Google after the first of the year is going to start not delisting you, but lower listing you. If you don't have SSL or whatever. So or a notice will come up saying, this is a dangerous site, or I've had that happen when there hasn't been a certificate for a place. Anyway,
makes no sense. You're not an e-commerce.
Well, I'm thinking of taking I can just take the security off by removing a file that I had to add to it, right? And I may try that and then see if it works. And if it works, that's what the problem is that the SSL certificate, which also doesn't allow you to hear the live programming the minute you go to the channel. We've got James Lee is on the line. James is calling us from Hawaii. Hello, James. Haven't heard from you in a while. What are you trying to do? Make us feel bad with all that fucking sun?
No, great signal coming into the islands. Unfortunately, Mr. Bennett, it's Merry Monarch time out here on the Big Island, so it's a lot of rain and a lot of humidity for the past 3 weeks. We've had a real wet month here.
Oh, really?
In February, March.
Son of a bitch.
The roaches are really flying, including our termites.
It's never really made me feel jealous with all of the vermin and all of the stuff that he deals with in the jungle there.
Now,
I feel naked and afraid.
Now, up, of course, in our right-hand corner, right up there, folks, there's Phil Meyer, ladies and gentlemen. He, like a trooper, the only time he missed was last night, and then he phoned in. He made sure you're a trooper. You're a real trooper.
I made sure I soiled the area.
So how are you? You're sitting down?
First time since Monday morning.
Really? And is it comfortable?
Yeah. It's nothing's comfortable. That I can guarantee you.
Did they give you pain pills at least?
Yeah, I stopped them though.
Why'd you stop them?
Well, they told me that if you didn't really need them, don't take them.
Is it opioid type?
Like Norco or
want to get addicted if you don't really need them.
What do they call that? Vicodin?
Vicodin? Oh, Vicodin's baby stuff.
Have they removed the catheter?
No. I get to enjoy that until the 29th.
Now, is that a problem? I was thinking, like, if I had to have my prostate removed, they would do the same thing. But having to walk around with the cath, what do you do? Just walk around the house with this bag in your hand?
Yeah. Although I don't do a lot of walking. They want me to walk. Why
don't you take a walk down the street holding the bag in your hand?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll get arrested. They'll figure I'm a bag man. But I'm just I walk around in circles in the apartment, and then I lay down a lot. And one of the biggest problems I'm having is I don't watch too much TV in the bedroom. So the bedroom has a Apple iTV or Apple TV.
Yeah, right.
And I guess I hadn't signed up for like 99% of the things that I have. So I've been watching CNBC all day. well, not CNBC, CBS, cable CBS, and it's the same 4 stories repeated 300 times.
Yeah, but you do have a lot of other things you could watch. There's like CBS Sunday Mornings on there, 60 Minutes is on there.
Yeah, well, most of the other things that I went on wanted me to go in and sign up online, put in this code.
Oh, yeah, you have to do that, yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't in the mood to put in the code. So
really?
I just laid there
just
and
do
watched
it.
the same news over
Just
and
do
over.
it with your iPad. You can put in the code with your iPad.
Yeah, but what the main news of the day was Zuckerberg.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wait on that,
Right.
story.
So we'll talk about.
And I don't know if that's the biggest story of the day. I think
Well,
the biggest story of the day is the guy down in Austin blew himself up.
Well, there's that guy, but I've only been seeing 4 news stories over and over.
Oh,
and over
I see,
again.
on the CBS channel. I see. How you doing, Tom Yamaguchi?
Hello.
You look a little tired tonight.
Yeah, Wednesdays are my busiest days, so I it's a little bit tiring, but I've got some energy. I just wanted to call because I'm just really getting sick and tired of you trashing Martin Luther King.
Me trashing Martin Luther King?
Yeah, when you were talking to Bubbles.
Well, let me.
And I understand, and I'm saying,
I'm
yes, Malcolm X definitely needs more respect and attention he's getting.
Yeah.
I would. One thing, Berkeley, we celebrate his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
You know when his birthday is?
No, actually.
Aha, May 19th.
Okay.
So you can celebrate. It's going to be on a Saturday this week. So you can celebrate Malcolm X's birthday.
You know what's going to be interesting is if I go down to Malcolm X Street here, if on that date there's anything happening down there. That will be interesting because I don't remember in past years anything going on down there.
You didn't know when to go.
Well, I didn't know when to go. That was true. Let me just explain my feeling about Martin Luther King. No, I don't diss him. I just don't think his place in history is as earned as, say, somebody like Malcolm X's would have been. That's what I'm basically saying.
Well,
that I agree. When I was talking about Martin Luther King to Bubbles, I was quoting Malcolm X, who said that he felt the trouble with Martin Luther King was, how can you be helping black people if you're taking white people's money to do it? And I agree with that.
That's what I have a problem with. There's no reason. That's as bigoted as a statement as I could ever come up with myself.
What?
Why is white people's money no good if they want to support a man and his story and his mission?
Well, because he was basically backed by white people. I mean, it was I just felt that Malcolm X was more my kind of radical, and I feel Martin Luther King compromised in a lot of situations. That's really my stance on him. I don't dislike Martin Luther King. He means a lot to a lot of people, so his message was important. Okay.
Well, more than he meant a lot of people, he had a lot of impact. Both of them had a lot of impact, and unfortunately, both of them would have had a greater legacy if they hadn't been assassinated at such an early age.
Right.
Now, one thing that King could have been King's legacy if he had not been assassinated on April 4th of '68. He was going to plan this Poor People's Campaign,
mm-hmm.
Another march on Washington, but actually an occupation of Washington poor people. Now, tell me that's not a radical act.
Oh, I think it's a very radical act. Yeah.
And unfortunately, because they lost his leadership, the attempt to was a dismal failure.
Yeah.
This year, on the 50th anniversary, they're going back. Reverend William Barber, who is definitely inspired by King and leads the Moral Mondays in, I believe, was it North Carolina, South Carolina, one of those Carolinas.
Yeah.
He's leading this 50th anniversary to try to complete what Martin Luther King started. And I think that's something we need to watch as well.
Well, let's see it. Let's see if it happens. You know, again, as I said there, I was always bothered by the fact that we celebrate the birthday of Martin Luther King, and all Malcolm X got was a lousy street. You know, that kind of always bothered me, because I think his place, and he was a very important leader. From the standpoint that his story went through a metamorphosis, which was a very important metamorphosis, from being this heavy radical wanting, you know, the move back to Africa movement, everything, you know, and he metamorphosed into seeing where the whites and blacks could work together. Because he went to Mecca and he saw whites and blacks praying together, and he said, aha, you know, it can be done.
Right. Yeah. And I would just say that if you have not read Malcolm X's autobiography, you really should.
That was by Haley, Alex Haley.
Yeah, Alex Haley. It was actually ghostwritten by Alex Haley, but it's called the autobiography of Malcolm X, and shows the transformation he went through.
I read it years ago. Years and years ago. And
I read it several times. The first time I read it was when I moved in with my adoptive parents, Tad and Alice Yamaguchi. Mm-hmm. And Alice says, "You're going to live with us. I'm going to give some books to read." And right on the top of that was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I was 19 years old at the time, and that set me on the path to radicalization, I could say.
Well, there was a time when he was completely vilified in this country by at least the white establishment, and a lot of the blacks as well, because he was very, very radical. You know, he didn't, and when he did, by the way, make peace with Martin Luther King. In fact, there is a photograph of them having gotten together at some point, but it still, you know, it still was it was not a positive relationship, because Malcolm felt that Martin Luther King was too wedded to doing business with white people, and he felt that a black movement should be run and financed and handled by blacks. Yes, James.
Yeah, excuse me, gentlemen. I'm going to have to go. I've got chores to do out here in the country.
Well, before you do that,
good luck to you, Mr. Meyer, on your catheter. You know, all of us out here, us old guys that have enlarged prostates here in Hawaii, Kaiser mandates that we know how to catheterize ourselves. So I've got the 18-inch tubes with the blue line on top, blah blah blah. And I've done that procedure quite a few times, including cystoles.
Before you leave, James, could you just turn that camera around and show us what apparently is maybe your backyard? It looks like
it's kind of jungle. I don't know if you see much. It's overcast.
You live in a fucking jungle.
The foliage is just taking over like hell.
Yeah, you live in a jungle. That's one hell of a lawn to mow.
Since I had a detached retina 2 months ago, I'm recovering on my left eye on the surgery. I have to fly back to Honolulu in a month to get the oil taken out of the inner of the eyeball.
Oh wow!
Since you know, with retina detachments, you can't fly above 1,000 feet.
Right.
Because of pressure problems. But since I wasn't going to stay in Honolulu for 3 months,
right,
the substitute is to put oil, a silicone oil, into the eyeball temporarily, which allows us to fly. Although the vision is blurred, but then after healing in about 4 months, you fly back to Honolulu and they drain out the oil, they suck it out, and then put back in an inert gas, which goes into a fluid.
Well, this is all pleasant. This is a very pleasant image. I guess the only thing worse is if Phil continues to describe his catheter. I think that would lose us more audience. But thank you, James. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry, it's a kind of a junky thing out here, but we'll see you all, and aloha, and hopefully you folks got some dry weather. Although it is cold for us, gentlemen. It's 72 degrees. We are freezing.
May I say, from all of us here in New York, go fuck yourself, okay?
It's raining out here.
I mean,
hui ho, aloha,
and huma huma nuka nuka apo apa to you too. Bye. That's James Lee, ladies and gentlemen. He calls the program from Hawaii, as does Renee. Maybe she'll call tonight. Jeff Stein has joined us, and we've been joined by Ray Renati and Bob Eberth, and Kevin has joined us, and and the Phil Meyer is sitting down. Let me just so anyway, did I kind of answer your question a little bit there, Tom? You know, I didn't want to upset you. It's always been my position about Martin Luther King. He was never my favorite black. He was never my favorite black leader. Yeah.
Some say he was the senior Wenceslas of civil rights.
Who? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. By the way, I looked it up. Yeah, Senior Wenceslas Way is on. If you're looking at what was the Ed Sullivan Theater here on Broadway, it is the street, the street to the north, on the north side of the that building. Yeah. And that is Senior Wenceslas Way. It is also known as something else Corner. They named the corner. They had names to give away that day. So they have Broadway, and then they have Senior Wenceslas Way, and then they have this, whatever the name of the corner is.
So one more thing, Alex. Since you said you actually read the autobiography of Malcolm X, I'm gonna try on my.
I also read the autobiography of Senior Wenceslas, by the way, in case you're interested.
Okay. But anyway, I'll try on my Malcolm X trivia question on you from the autobiography.
Well, it was a long time ago.
When he was washing dishes, and I think it was in Cincinnati, but he was working at a restaurant washing dishes, and there was another dishwasher there who he described as the funniest man he ever met in his life. Do you know who that person was?
I'm only going to guess. Red Fox.
Dick Gregory.
Huh?
Fox, really?
Yeah.
What? Good guess.
Yes.
But it's funny because what was Malcolm X's nickname in those days? Huh?
Was something red.
It was I think it was just Red.
Okay,
basically,
red.
Yeah. So when he says when somebody yelled red, I guess two people went, "What?" Yeah. Anyway, so you're fine, doing fine, Phil. I guess you're not going out. You're not going to be doing much for the next 9 days, right?
No, and I don't feel like it. You know, I'm happy just laying in bed, listening to the same 4 news stories over and over.
Just take your iPad with you and just type in the thing and put in those numbers, and all of a sudden you'll have.
I know I could. I was just being very lazy.
That is a very annoying part of having a Roku or an Apple TV or whatever, is that every now and then, for some odd reason, they say, and put these numbers in and get it okayed. We want to make sure you have a subscription, blah, 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 blah. And you want to go, fuck you. You know, can I just do it once, you know? But it's like I don't know, the last week, all of a sudden, all of them expired or something. I had to do my HBO again. I had to do my Showtime again. Every time they should have like one thing and that's it, you know?
It's a conspiracy. They knew I wasn't going to feel good this week.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can spend your time filling out those things. Whenever you get a new like Roku or a new Apple TV, you then got to spend half the afternoon putting in all these apps with these permissions and so on.
Well, I haven't bought a new one. I got one Roku and one Apple TV, and they do everything I want them to do, except now.
Well, the new Apple TVs supposedly you only need to put it in once, and they will
It caches the credentials.
I don't know if it caches the credentials or whatever it does, but
it's a spot where you put all the credentials in.
Yeah.
Under general or whatever it is.
Yeah. Which reminds me to tell people that we do have a Roku channel for GabNet, and on that Roku channel, among other things, you can hear the audio here. I'm trying to figure out a way we can also have the live video from Facebook on there, from YouTube on there. But if you've got a Roku, you've got YouTube, and if you go to YouTube, we are live on YouTube, so you can use your YouTube app on both your Apple TV and your Roku to watch the show. Okay.
By the way, did I miss something? Because CNN has been running this Kennedy special every Sunday night. And then tonight I saw an ad for a trailer, actually, for this Chappaquiddick, this Ted Kennedy movie that's out now. Yeah. Is there some anniversary? I know it's 50 years since Bobby was, Martin and Bobby were killed in 1968. Is there another reason why?
Yeah, this is National Drowning Month.
Wasn't it 50 years also since the Vietnam War?
Safety. Yes, it's 50 years since the end of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, it is.
The Vietnam War wasn't over in 1968, was it?
74.
Well, that's not 50 years.
No, 50 years since something in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Oh, My Lai, that's it.
My Lai, that's it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But no, I haven't watched that Kennedy thing. I'll tell you what I did watch. The Hearst thing they did was incredibly good. Because I started, after all these years, you kind of forget all the particulars about it. And it was a pretty amazing story. And they make it come out like she was probably a willing accomplice at a certain point.
What's
that on?
Huh?
That's CNN.
It was on CNN. They already ran it, but if you have CNN Go on your Roku or on whatever, or I think you even go to their website and watch it.
It's probably on demand or something.
That's probably on demand. Yep.
Yeah.
I could never
What, Ray?
That's all right.
What?
I can never figure out how people make this argument that she was a willing participant. I mean, you lock somebody in a closet for a month. I just don't think you can blame them for anything they do after that. I mean,
well, let me put it this way: they had a guy. They had two people. They had several people there. Some who were with the, I guess, the FBI looking for her, and other people. And then there was this one guy who was the guy one of the guys who kidnapped her. Who it basically said, we kidnapped an heiress, and what we got after a couple of weeks was literally a leader. I mean, she was literally leading the whole thing. He said she was not. At a certain point, we said, look, we're going to let you go. Go home. I don't want to go home. I mean, just in the the Mel's Sporting Goods thing where they were leaving Mel's Sporting Goods. They thought they'd stolen something, and then the guy in the store stopped them, and they said, no, we didn't steal anything, because they didn't actually. But she was in the car waiting, and when they started fighting, she pulled out literally an artillery-style weapon and started shooting rapid fire all over Mel's Sporting Goods. And then they got in the car, and she drove the getaway car. And he said, at any point during that, she could have just taken the car, driven to the closest police station, said, I'm Patty Hearst, please save me. But she didn't. Instead, she picked up the machine gun or whatever and started firing like a madman or woman.
Hated her father.
Huh?
She probably hated her father.
I think she hated her mother more than she hated her father. I think she loved her father, but according to this, she wasn't too happy with her mother because her mother was in cahoots with Reagan.
Well, I remember when they made the parents get a tractor trailer load of food, and they're throwing the bags off.
Oh, that was in this thing. Yeah, it was a complete fiasco because of the way they gave it away, and it was just Yeah,
it was all over the. But I remember it from the time that it happened. It was an interesting thing. And talking about Martin Luther King.
Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a quick story. The reason I like this documentary. For years, I've told the story. I think Tom knows the story. That when I was working at WPLJ in New York, and every night I was the radical on the radio, okay, I get a call one night from somebody saying, you want an interview with Patty Hearst? And I said, well, tell me about it. He said, if you for $1,000, we'll let you interview Patty Hearst. And I said, well, where is she? Says she's in the greater area near New York. Okay. And we can get you the interview with her, but it's going to cost $1,000. And so I've always told the story how I could have done an interview with Patty Hearst while she was on the run. But I've always wondered whether the call was legitimate or whatever until I watched this documentary. Guess where she wound up? They wound up staying for about 6 months in Pennsylvania in a farmhouse.
Oh, that's right. With that.
Yeah. So the offer that was made to me was legitimate. The only reason I wouldn't do it is I'm not paying money for an interview.
Right.
That would involve me, make me complicit in her crimes or whatever. So that's the reason I decided to turn it down. But I always wondered if it was for real, if she was really here. And then here's this documentary, and the guy who drove out with her and they stayed with her and everything told the story about living in the farmhouse out in the backwoods of Pennsylvania. So the offer made to me was for real. You know,
wow.
So that's
I
what
was always interested in that whole thing because that happened right down the street from my father's gas station in San Mateo. He was they were about less than a mile away from there. Yeah. And we always had the FBI coming into, he had a Chevron station, so the government always issued the Chevron the gas cards. We always had them guys coming in. We had Patty coming in when she had her dog. My girlfriend at the time, we used to go by there, in our cars and drive by and see what was going on. She got pulled over in a court because she looked like Patty Hearst. She had the hair and the whole bit, and she got guns pulled on her and everything. And that was probably about 3 weeks into it.
Her parents lived in Hillsborough, so it wasn't that far from San Mateo.
She didn't live in Yeah, she lived off of, I think it was El Cerrito Road.
Oh, in Berkeley?
Huh?
When she was in Berkeley, or when the parents?
Hillsborough. Yeah, it was actually San Mateo Hillsborough borderline.
Yeah. They couldn't afford
big
Hillsborough.
mansion up there.
Yeah, couldn't afford
it. But it is
that whole area was just full of. They'd put portable phone booths and outhouses and everything up and down. The neighbors were pissed off. And
what's fascinating is the interviews with this guy who was one of the actual guys who kidnapped her. And
I thought that they all got killed. I thought the entire Symbionese Liberation Army got killed in that house in L.A. when they.
This was, what was his name? I'm trying to remember his name now. He and his wife. What?
Yeah.
I thought the name of the guy whose house in Pennsylvania was Jack Scott.
Jack Scott was the guy in Pennsylvania. Yeah. But it was what were their names? I remembered them the minute they said them on the show.
Yeah. But a couple of them are still running around over here in Berkeley.
Well, he spent time in prison, and he's out, and he was telling them the story, and he kept saying, "This woman was crazy." He said, I kind of wanted to unload her because to have her around was just, huh?
The Harrises, right?
The Harrises, yes.
William Harrison.
That's right.
Yeah, Emily Harris and
Bill Harris.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Bill Harris is the guy who's being interviewed in this. Also, Patty Hearst's boyfriend. What was his name? Stephen Weed. Stephen Weed. He's still a dweeb. He's still a dweeb.
She even hooked up with one of the FBI cops.
Well, she married him.
She married a San Francisco detail protection cop.
Yeah, because they came into the gas station. I saw them,
and they were married till his
dog.
They were married till his death a few years ago. He died a few years ago. Yeah. She has never talked about this. She's never. She did an interview with Larry King, and I think that was about it. And she wouldn't talk about it during this thing. So it becomes it's not one-sided. They try to be as even-handed as possible. But, with Harris saying how he feels about her, he's more pissed at her than anything, that she just kind of like threw them to the wolves rather than, and just played like, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. And I mean, he says she knew what the fuck she was doing. We told her to go home and she wouldn't go home.
That was his defense.
Because we realized that she was not an asset to have around because everybody was looking for her.
Well, you know what? She probably realized she could get a free ride. She probably realized that she could have done what she wanted, probably pulled some shit and got away with it.
Well,
she got a free ride anyway.
She was found. She was found guilty. But, wait a minute. Here's the part that they bring up in this. If you are in a group of people who rob a bank and somebody gets killed, everybody who is involved in that is subject to the death penalty.
Right.
Okay? She was driving the car in Sacramento when they robbed that bank, and the woman was killed. She was driving the getaway car. She wasn't in the bank. She managed to skate on that. Completely skate on it.
Money, money, money.
Yeah.
So she got away with it.
Yeah. So she comes off not appearing to be as wonderful as you would, as, the innocent, she was kidnapped. You can use the argument only so far that because she was kidnapped, that's a good excuse, the Stockholm Syndrome, any one of the things you want to throw at it. But after a while, you say to yourself, she could have just driven that car away while those guys were in Mel's Sporting Goods, and she didn't,
Well, there's a certain...
But isn't that what Stockholm Syndrome is, though? I mean, your thinking becomes completely convoluted. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I mean, isn't that is what Stockholm Syndrome?
If you watch this thing, it is so consistent.
I'm going to have to watch it.
For several years. At some point, don't you say, hey, I want to go home. Hey, I want to get out of this. Hey, I've got a way out of this. All I have to do is say, they brainwashed me, and I'm home safe. But she didn't do it.
But we don't know her mental state before she got kidnapped. I mean, maybe she already had some sort of mental illness of some kind or something.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I mean, I don't know. I don't. These Harris people, I have a hard time believing everything they say.
Yeah, but they
can say anything.
There were a lot of the cops who believed that she was a willing participant.
But cops never believe in Stockholm Syndrome. Isn't that right, Phil? I mean, don't most cops put that down as a bunch of bullshit?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's been going on for years. They've had other people with Stockholm Syndrome issues, but I don't know whether they accept that or not. I've never gotten involved.
Okay.
Well, in case people, we should explain in case people don't know what Stockholm Syndrome is. Stockholm Syndrome is is when you're kidnapped by somebody, you might start as a defense mechanism identifying with your kidnappers, and that's what she did. I mean, I'm sure that had played part and parcel into it, but then they started treating her very nicely and told her, "You can go home anytime you want to, kid. We don't need you around here." And no, I don't want to go. I want to stay. And she fell in love with several members of the. She was having an affair with one of the guys who got Willie Wolf, who got killed in the house down in L.A. And there was one other guy that she started taking up with.
Now she's a dog breeder. She is. That's what she does. She brings dogs. She does. She goes to dog shows.
Yeah.
With her dogs.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's amazing. I just looked to see how many people are actually physically listening to us on the audio, and it's like nobody's listening to us anymore. They're all watching us. So,
I was going to say, when you were talking about...
Maybe I should take it off the website. So they don't say, I don't have to do that. I can just watch the video.
Well, that's how they find it. They go to the website. The website is connected to YouTube, and they can watch it.
Well, gabnet.net, if you go over there, whenever we're on, the picture is playing there. So
So, are you getting that from TuneIn, Alex? That data?
But I'm getting that down. I get that data from our server.
Oh, okay.
Getting it from,
and it's amazing. I could turn off the audio now to the server, and only about 9 people would care. Okay,
I think Ray is getting that analytics from that place in the UK that supplied. They got the
Cambridge, yeah.
No, Cambridge Analytics is not in. Is it in England? Cambridge Analytics.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I guess they were hired. Ray sent me an article, and it was interesting that they were hired by a British military contractor. And I was just wondering who hired the British military contractor.
I know, it's so bizarre.
And now
did you watch that video, Bill?
That other elections have profited from their information, and the latest thing I heard, and it could be fake news, is that Obama profited from the analytics that they provided.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it repeated too many times, so it may be another false story.
Well, the question isn't that they had an analytic database and that they were good at their analytics. That's not what people are yelling about. What they're yelling about is they went in and stole how many millions of Facebook accounts?
300 million. No, there was 300 million of these games. Like the people that were sending you Candy Crush.
It was
those were ones that were stealing our information.
Wait a minute. Rob seems to.
It was a personality test.
That's right.
That kid, I saw the interview with him.
Kozov or something?
Yeah. And they did was, and this is one of the dangers of Facebook, when people when you sign in with, you get to a website and it says use Facebook. Well, when you do that, they now have all of your information from Facebook. It just turns on the faucet of all your information. And what happened in this case was, if you took that test, not only did it are you granted the permission by taking that test, but what it did was it grabbed all of your friends and everybody who were friends, and it pulled all their information in. So that's
I never did that.
My friends deserved it.
Well,
145,000 people who took that test, but it was like 50 million people whose information was garnered from it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, so that's what they're complaining about, not the fact that this is it's not like this is some data analysis company who you hire to analyze the electorate, and they do it in a perfectly legal and functional way.
But Alex, they placed ads that would cause people to be divisive. And
yes, but what we're saying is you're claiming that Obama used this company. I have not heard any such thing. I think you're mixing it up. I think you're mixing it up with another story of something that Obama used that.
I don't think so, but I'm on Norco, so I could be mixing it up with a lot of things.
Yeah, I think I've never heard the fact that I don't think this company was even in existence back when Obama was running.
Is it Steve Bannon used to be on the executive? He was one of the executives of the company, and way back in 2014, he was testing phrases like "drain the swamp" and "the wall" and all these things before there was even a Donald Trump, which goes on to show you that Trump doesn't have an initial idea of his own anywhere, that he's just a vessel that they picked, and it's just very sad.
Tom Yamaguchi.
Well, I think the word they used was puppet. But what was really amazing was that they even came up with the name Crooked Hillary.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right.
And I was listening a joke by Stephen Colbert was like, he says, if this guy had only one skill, it was to give names to people, and they're even pulling.
Well, wait a minute. Wasn't there that other guy? What's his name? Who does the polling and so on?
Harris?
No, the guy does like focus groups and so on.
But you know that field poll.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. You're throwing me off here. What?
Gallup?
No, it's not a name. It's a guy.
Starts with an R. Rasmussen?
No, that's Rasmussen. That's a phony poll. God, I'm trying to remember his name now, right offhand. But anyway, he's the one that came up with a lot of those terms and talking points for Republicans, and then he would send it to them, and all of a sudden you'd hear Republicans using the same term. What?
Was it Laffer? Art Laffer?
Laffer? No, but you
Red Fox.
Red Fox.
Do you know what struck me funny about this election? The field poll said that they refused to participate in it. And that has always been a poll that was widely respected ever since I was a kid, and they refused to participate in this election.
I think maybe because they felt it was the information was being tainted.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
But it seems as though the information, the tainted information, was being sent to individuals. And it was there to actually create a divisive atmosphere amongst people.
Yes.
Hey, Phil, this is Tim.
Yeah.
You know who the main architect of all this was Bannon.
Right.
Probably.
He shopped this. Yeah. He tried to shop this to Cruz at first.
Yeah.
He was trying to find somebody that'd go along with him, and Trump ended up being the perfect lackey.
Well, isn't it interesting that Trump fired Bannon? So maybe we're going to get to see.
Well, they're talking about whether the data still exists. They said they destroyed the 50 million pieces, profiles.
Yeah, sure.
And they have thousands of data points on each person. But that stuff was shared with Breitbart. So there's a good chance that when I worked with the biggest data group, the Social Security Administration in Baltimore. Once data by an organization gets created, it never gets deleted, ever.
Right. That's right.
It's always somewhere in a backup tape, on a backup server, or somebody has taken it home and worked with it, and it's out there.
Tom has his hand up.
Or stored on the cloud.
Okay, Tom has his hand up, and then Rob.
The neighbor first, Frank Lutz.
Frank Lutz. That's exactly what I was saying of it. He was the guy who came up with all those little terms that every Republican would suddenly, every one of them be using the same term.
Right, yeah.
And he came up with that. Yes, Rob.
I watched the Zuckerberg interview tonight with that tech girl who had no business interviewing him because it was just softball questions. How come nobody asked the question, why should we trust Facebook anymore to have our data? Why should we trust you? Because all he was asked about was what he was going to do with what happened in 2014. And they knew about this in 2015 and didn't say anything about it, right? And what are they going to do? Well, they're going to go back and they're going to audit all of these apps, and they're going to go and try to find where data moved and this and that, and try to but what are you doing for me today? And how are you not going to be outsmarted again today? And why should we trust you?
Rob,
how about making him pay for it? He should pay the biggest fine in history.
At the last question she asked, I changed the fucking channel. I was so aggravated. So tell me, now that you have children, what
God
about? It was like, really? I was like, it was softball interview. Where was somebody who had balls to interview this guy?
How about him paying for a do-over of the 2016 election?
Well,
without all the fake news.
Well, you dream on, Tim. That's not going to happen.
I know, but you got to start with but we should make him pay, or Cambridge should pay. They had a consent decree that it's $20,000 or $25,000 per incident per day if they violated it, and that's $50 million minus the $275,000. That's $2 trillion in fines just under the consent decree.
And now we're stuck with a loose cannon in the White House that you wonder how we got there, right? All the polls, everybody was so wrong, and everybody was so surprised on election night. Yet the people who knew the data, they just forged onward because they knew they were going to win.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Jeff.
I have a little different understanding about how Trump got where he was going. And I remember all the Republicans, and there was, 10 of them who were trying to become president, and they were all on TV at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody tried to be Mr. Nice Guy to everybody else, except for Trump. And he just ripped off anyone who got up at the day. He would rip off on Bush or whoever it was. And I think he was amplified by that, where he got great reactions to that by the TV. People said, "Oh, you can't believe what he said to so-and-so last night." And you know what? Nobody else competed with him on that stuff. That's one thing. But the other thing is there was too many of them.
Well, how else do you stand out from low energy Bush or tiny Marco or
Hey, they just posted the transcript of the Putin phone call.
Yeah.
Putin says, "Isn't it true you tried to sell Russia's secret war code and plans?" And Trump replies, "Sure, I have sold a coat and a 2 pair of pants." That's a summer joke, boss?
Yeah, it's the first joke I ever heard out of you. That was pretty good. I'll take it if I can get it.
Summer joke. I love the Marx Brothers. They were brilliant, even though they didn't write their own. Buster Keaton didn't like them because they didn't write their own jokes.
Here is the latest thing that people are questioning. As long as you brought up the Trump phone call to Putin, he has managed to use his tweets to insult just about every world leader, from Angela Merkel to Theresa May to the French president, on and on and on and on and on. The only one he hasn't written about is, guess who?
Yeah.
Putin. And
Well, there's one other
wait a
one,
minute,
Alex,
hold,
there's one other one.
let me finish,
Stormy.
Tim. Let me finish, Tim. The discussion has moved to a newer discussion of what does Putin have on this guy? Mm-hmm. Has he been compromised at some point where he is doing Putin's bidding and is not insulting Putin and is not saying anything against Putin? He doesn't seem to worry about insulting our allies, such as England or Germany or France or a lot of other countries. Australia. Yeah, but he won't ever say anything negative against Putin. And the question is, and they're starting to ask it, even Republicans are asking it, what does Putin have on Trump? Yes, Pat. Yes, Phil. Yes, Phil.
Well, I think that for the first time, you see, what most American leaders have done is they've inserted their direction on other countries. The Mideast is always saying, well, America is trying to make us live like them, and so forth.
That's right. He's leader of the free world, Phil.
Yeah, well, all he did was congratulate the guy, and he didn't enter into trying to convince Putin to come around to our way of living. I mean, this is what the Democrats have been screaming for.
He didn't confront him at all on the
wasn't the time and the place.
Come on, not the time and the place. In large words, do not congratulate.
Well, the only way.
Hey, Rob, you know what he thought that meant? They figured out what he thought. He thought that meant don't congratulate Putin for sabotaging our election.
Oh,
that's what he thought that meant.
Well,
right? When he didn't do that.
I'm not so sure it was Putin.
You don't feel at all used, Phil? Not at all. When you think that those terms.
I think if anybody should feel used, it's all of you guys that have been used by Facebook, been used by this analytics, has been used by Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely, we do feel used. Hey, do you know there's a link between this fear that Trump has and the Novichok nerve agent they used in Britain? Is everybody thinks why did Putin do something that's just unbelievable. He would do that, and they think, well, it's a message to all the ex-Russian spies, but it's not. It's not a message to the people that were ex-Russian spies. It's a message to all the guys in the United States, like Manafort, Flynn, Lewandowski, Corey Page, whoever his name is. All these people, including Trump.
Okay.
You divulge anything, then you're a dead man.
Okay, Bob Eberth, yes.
Have you noticed that the only people Trump ever compliments are people like Erdogan,
Right.
the guy in Egypt, the guy in the Philippines?
Right.
He loves dictators.
Right.
Yeah.
So he saw nothing wrong with the elections in Russia.
No.
In fact, he would love to have had an election like that here.
He made a comment about it. He said he congratulated the Chinese leader because he became a lifelong leader. He goes, maybe we should try that here in the U.S.
Yeah.
What kind of question? What kind of?
What about the salmon? What about the salmon guy who imprisoned all his relatives in Saudi Arabia? And that same guy that Kushner had 2 slumber parties with when he was over there.
Well, did you happen to watch the Saudi Arabian prince on 60 Minutes this week?
Yeah.
I watched part of it. Yeah.
Well, you should have watched all of it, Tim.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was very interesting. I mean, I find him a fascinating guy. I mean, the reason he to begin with, yes, he imprisoned all those guys with a lot of money. But he imprisoned them in what, the Hilton Hotel, I think it was, or the
it was the it was one of the big hotels.
Yeah, in luxury suites with the complete run of the hotel. That was
he got results,
and he got results.
Well, there's a source that says that Kushner provided him with a list from our intelligence agencies of people he should imprison. That's a source. Now, it's only one source I've heard from one of the news organizations.
Well, so far there's no sign of him having imprisoned any Americans. The only people he imprisoned.
No. They told him which Saudi Arabians to imprison, not Americans.
Yeah, but in any event,
they provided the intelligence because Saudi Arabia would never get intelligence.
This wasn't brought up in the interview. They brought up about all the people who had been arrested. I think there were 30 of them, and they're still under house arrest.
Right.
And because he felt they had stolen from the people and that they had, done wrong, and that's the reason he imprisoned them. And I'm not saying, I'm not defending it. I don't know the full facts of the case, but he certainly had his reasons for believing he had the right to do it.
But he's also at the same time, for distraction, doing the opposite of what Trump does. Trump's taken away our freedoms, including these NDAs for federal employees. That's another one. But Ben Salman is giving more freedom to the women as a distraction of what he's doing behind the scenes, amassing his power. He's just like Erdogan. He's amassing his power, I'm afraid.
Well, all I'm saying is I think that I think that there is something that Putin has on Trump. I think Trump is the Manchurian candidate. He is basically the guy who got into office because Putin knew he was malleable and could be used. Yes, Tom.
And one of the people asking that question is John Brennan, former CIA director.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's right. I saw him on CNN tonight talking about that.
Yeah, and I think maybe he was the one I heard on MSNBC today as well.
And he can only tell us 10% of what he knows because of it's all top secret.
Right, but maybe there are videos of him being peed on by Russian hookers. For all we know.
Well, he went to that nightclub in Vegas that had that as one of their musical numbers.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we get to the stormy. Oh yes, Ray.
Yeah, I was just listening to an episode of Fresh Air, Terry Gross's program on NPR, and there are a couple of guys who wrote a new book about this, and there's all kinds of evidence about Trump dealing with the Russians, trying to build a tower in there.
David Corn?
Yeah,
he was trying.
Yeah, it's the evidence. The evidence is all there. It's in emails. There's paper trails. It's all there. They just put it all together in a book.
Well,
no one's paying any attention.
Well, how you can phone up and congratulate a man who won a completely rigged election. I mean, it is just to begin with, he either had his opponents disqualified or killed. That's another one, or arrested. And so he had no opposition. And then there were videos today of the Russian polling places and the voting boxes being stuffed.
Yes, I saw.
Okay, now how do you then, knowing, armed with all this information as President of the United States, call him up to congratulate him? By the way, what you heard was, Phil, that Obama called him up to Putin 6 years ago to congratulate him for winning. But at that point, we didn't have the information about the poisoning, about the way the elections have been rigged. I mean, all this information was not available at that time, but it is now, and we've got a president congratulating him. Yes, Rob?
He also didn't congratulate him. What he said was, congratulations on getting through another election cycle.
Right, that's exactly. I was going to say the same thing, Rob.
Not congratulate.
I take it out of my mind sometimes. That's crazy.
Well, no, it could well be that is the case. Some people are spinning it to say that he congratulated him, but even if he did, at that point in time, we did not have the information at hand.
But then he hit him on all the points that we had problems with too.
Right.
Immediately talked about the problem.
Yes, Phil.
No, Obama's no perfect, but he was.
I've got to cut. I can't sit any longer. I'm going to have to go lay down.
Okay, go lay down. We're so happy you were part of our citizens panel party tomorrow night. You'll be able to make it all the way through.
Maybe. Good night.
Good night,
Take care.
Phil. Okay.
Sorry, Phil.
Yeah. Now we can talk real dirt about Trump. Thanks, Phil. Okay. All right. Okay.
And Mueller asked his questions today. Mueller came out today to talk about what he wants to talk to the president about, and they're going to try to negotiate that. Lots of people are saying there's no way this meeting's ever going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't understand.
Well, Trump's too busy worrying about who leaked. He's worried about the leaker.
I don't understand how, if the special prosecutor wants to talk to him, or they don't call him special prosecutor, whatever it is, independent prosecutor, how he could refuse it. Doesn't he have to? Isn't that obstruction of justice if he doesn't?
He can take the fifth. He can take the fifth.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody see the guy that's connected to Roger
No,
Stone?
but if he takes the fifth, he has to take the fifth consistently throughout the entire interrogation. He can't just take the fifth on one question and then not take it on another. Answer.
He's old enough to say, "I can't recall."
No.
Sessions is giving him preparation sessions. I can't recall. There's 2,000 ways to say I can't recall.
Yeah.
I disagree with you.
Well, how do you disagree with me?
Well, I think that somebody can say I refuse to respond on this question, and accept the next one. Or a different one.
I know that in a court of law, okay, if you're testifying and you take the fifth, you have to consistently take the fifth. You cannot take the fifth on one question, but then decide. You seem to agree with me, Ray. Do you on this?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not sure if they have to abide by those rules under this circumstance, because it actually isn't a court.
But the problem is, if he takes the fifth, it'll kill him politically. He will start losing much more support from the Republicans. So this is a political decision, not a legal decision. Because we already know Kushner's going down.
Well,
it doesn't matter whether we get Trump.
Well, the thing is, he has been and constantly has been. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh well. That's not.
Well, he'll just do. I don't recall all the time. You remember John Dean?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I don't recall. I don't recall.
If he does that, though, he's going to seem suspicious. And what he's doing lately is he is losing his Republicans. I mean,
yes.
You've got what it called the head of the House.
O'Donnell. What's his name?
No.
Ryan.
Ryan.
McConnell.
Ryan has come out kind of against Trump in the last couple of days.
So is McConnell.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all sick of him, and they don't want to. They don't want any part of this charade that's going on. You know, this is just getting to be ridiculous.
Hey, Alex, do you know Randy Credico, who has a radio show?
No, never heard of him.
WBI. They interviewed him. He's the guy. He's the go-between between Roger Stone and Assange.
Never heard of him.
It's like the guy was doing. Ari Melber interviewed him. If you go back and watch it. From
Boy, can I say something about Ari Melber? Because I see him on MSNBC.
No, go ahead.
Singularly, the most boring host on MSNBC. Just
but this was a
terrible.
Because Crochetto started doing impressions of Nixon and Reagan instead of answering the questions. It was unbelievable. The guy's half comedian, and he's half of a Roger Stone and half of a radio announcer.
Yeah.
But it was him and Hall around answering any question. He would just jump around.
Anybody watch Ari Melber at all? What do you think? He's kind of boring, isn't he? He's just.
Yeah, he is.
I don't watch him.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't understand it because there's certainly a lot better people out there who could be running that shop. But he's a lawyer. It's always important to have a lawyer. As though we don't have enough lawyers as there is already.
Hey, Alex, he likes hip-hop, too, and he does a lot of hip-hop references.
So oh, very good.
You got to give him.
Well, I'm not crazy about hip-hop, so, you know, it doesn't matter. The Stormy Daniels thing seems like the story that just won't go away. You know, by now you would have thought everybody was tired of the Stormy Daniels story, but apparently it just keeps on going. And now you've got the Playmate, who it turns out was lied to by the National Enquirer when she signed a non-disclosure agreement. The reason she signed a non-disclosure agreement was because she had given them an article. And so they said, we want a non-disclosure agreement because we want the exclusive on this. And so what they had her sign was a non-disclosure agreement rather than just something like you promise not to publish this anywhere else. And so that's the so-called non-disclosure agreement, and she's claiming it's a complete charade and that she wants to be free to that. And I think she's suing the National Enquirer and she's suing the President of the United States. And in a court of law, the court said, yes, you can sue the President of the United States. Yes, Bob Eberth.
If my memory serves me correct, the lawyer that was representing her was also representing Trump. So he was not working in her best interest. And I think that's what they're putting the balance of her
part of it.
Case.
Now, supposedly, there is the inference where the Stormy Daniels case is concerned that there are tapes.
They're photos, I think.
They're photos?
Photos, yeah. I don't know. I heard video. I heard photos.
But she's got a text. She's got a dress too.
Oh, really?
She's going to have a test that she's got a dress with DNA on it.
Ooh.
She kept it and kept it pristine.
They're going to have it tested. Now she wasn't raped, but she had her freedom taken away by that NDA. And it's a totally, if you know anything about contracts, that was a totally 100% one-sided contract. Those usually can be tore apart in a court of law.
Oh, by the way, you know what's very interesting that we should be getting the results of soon? Do you know who did away with all their NDAs that they had with their employees? The Weinstein Corporation. They said they are now free to speak whatever they want to say.
And file bankruptcy.
Oh, because he's gone, so they want to make things right.
A lot of stuff.
I think they said they can say whatever they want to say about Harvey. Maybe not about the company, but about Harvey.
You know what's fascinating about Trump is the way he treats these women is really what the Me Too campaign complains about. But Trump is treating these women as if he's a pimp. Just like a pimp would treat his employees. You get out of line, little missy, and you'll have hell to pay. That's how he's treating these women, like he thinks he's a pimp.
Well, you know,
that describes his actions.
Look,
and
the American people made a big mistake. That's all we can say. And I don't know what we can do about it. Yes, Tom.
No, the American people did make a big mistake, considering there were 3 million more of us that voted for Hillary Clinton. We didn't make the mistake. It was 77,000 people in a handful of states in the Midwest that made the decision that we're all stuck with.
That's easy to say, Tom, except for the fact that 3 million people more voted for her when it should have been a great deal more than that, considering the talent that was running for the presidency. You know,
well, I tried. I worked in the campaign. I called people. I pleaded with people. I said, you know, our biggest enemy is not Trump. It's complacency, and well, of course,
well, yeah, but it also goes back to the old thing.
Complacency, but it was actually the discouragement. Once again, we get back to this Cambridge Analytica. Much of their focus was discouraging people from vote. Much of their success was suppressing the vote.
I know I was affected by some of it. Believe it, just tired of seeing those bad stories about Hillary.
Yes, Ray
a lot of what they did was target Bernie supporters to become apathetic and not vote for Hillary. Millions of people. They targeted millions of people. And it was successful.
Not voting in elections is an addiction, and like any addiction, American public has to hit rock bottom before they'll do anything. They got to hit rock bottom.
I got to say this. You know, where the presidential election is concerned, again, we're dealing with the Electoral College, and in the case of Tom, who went out and did his due diligence and voted. How many electoral votes does California have? It's one for every senator and one for every congressman, right?
53?
Maybe 53? Okay.
Somewhere in the 50s.
How do you feel that your vote, your one vote, is just compressed down into 53 votes? You know? Whereas in other elections, like congressional elections, one vote can be the determining factor. But in the case of the Electoral College, you're not really voting for president. You could not have gone in to vote and it would have still turned out the same way. Okay? Yes. And I think that it's time we really revisited this whole Electoral College and what it represents. It made a lot of sense when you had a guy in Iowa who had to get on horseback and go to Washington, D.C. to vote in the Electoral College. It made sense then. But now it doesn't make sense. It's not a travel issue, you know? Yes, Tom.
Even then, it wasn't as much a travel issue as it was a concession to states that had had more rural populations. Particularly in the South. And so, in a way, it sort of got into the slavery issue because the South was afraid that if the urban centers had too much power, they would outlaw slavery. So
the Republicans took advantage and used their Southern strategy, and that's all it was. Mm-hmm. Racist strategy, you might as well call it.
Sure. Well, yeah. You know, but it does make sense that, well, hey, you know, at least you have 2 votes. You know, yeah, if you have one congressional district, you got 3 votes, right?
Can't you have like Rhode Island or something like that where you only have 1 vote?
Well, no, you don't have Electoral College. You have at least 3, because you're going to have 2 senators and you're going to have at least 1 congressional district.
Okay, but only 1.
What were you saying, Tom?
Yeah, I was saying one for each senator, 1 for each congressman. So a state like Montana, where you only have 1 congressman, so they have 3, but they have at least 3. Mm-hmm. And so that puts them at an advantage of a state that has a lot more population. It sort of makes the individual voters in the state have collectively more power than the millions of people who are in New York and California and Illinois and such and such.
Here's where I'm very stupid, okay? And that is how do we determine how many congressional districts there are in a state? Let's say, I mean, is it doled out by population?
By population.
Because I wondered if a
it's
state,
it's under 1 million.
If a state like
every 780,000 or something.
But if a state like Connecticut couldn't say, well, we have 42 congressional districts because we've chopped the state up into 42 congressional districts. No. Does it have to be chopped up into proportionate population? In other words, how do you establish a congressional district? We talk about gerrymandering. This thing's getting really wild where, you know, this side of the street is one congressional district, this side of the street isn't, and on the other side of that street, it's the old congressional district because it's somehow snaked through. I mean, how do we decide how many congressional districts there are, and then that would determine how many electoral votes a state has?
I think it's by population.
It is by population.
And that's the reason they take the census, is to find out how many people.
Okay, so what I want to know is how many people per congressional district is there?
Well, right now, I don't know.
See, I don't think any of us know here.
It's 780,000, I think.
What?
Around 780,000.
Really?
Yeah.
You think?
Well, look at California. But California has what?
All I'm saying is, I would feel much better about my vote counting if they added up all the votes that people had, and if Hillary won, she became president of the United States. And if Trump won, he became president of the United States. And none of this bullshit about electoral college, because that way you can game the system. You know. Okay.
711,000 people.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Okay.
I'd say 710,760.
Now let me ask you this question. Let's say in a state like Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
How many people live in Connecticut?
I don't know.
Oh, well. All I'm saying is, if it's 711,000, let's say you're in a state and you've got 712,000. Where does that other guy go?
Puerto Rico.
I think you round up or round down.
Yeah, it's approximately 711,000. So they round it.
Connecticut, I think we have 6 congressmen.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 senators, so 8. That would be 8 votes. So does it require a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Electoral College?
Yes.
So that would be at least a 2-year process, right?
Yeah.
Even if they decide to
You know
get
what
started.
the problem with that is?
Never happened.
The Republicans have a bunch of amendments they want to pass, and they only have 4 or 5 states to go. It's my understanding.
Yeah.
And they'll pass some really bad amendments along with that one. Because once you have a convention, anybody can bring up any amendment.
Tom?
It has to be approved by the state legislature.
Tom?
And the Koch brothers are busy writing all those amendments.
Yeah. Tom?
Who's writing them is Alec.
Okay.
Alec is writing them.
Oh, yeah. Let Tom talk, please.
Yeah, I would say there is an alternative to the constitutional amendment, and that's when each state agrees that it will give all its electoral votes, and California turns out it's 55, all its electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. And a number of states, including California, has done that already. And so that means if you get enough states that make that, 271 or whatever, threshold, that would basically make the Electoral College.
So what you're saying is if all states agreed to say, we will cast all our electoral votes for the person who wins the national vote.
Right, exactly.
Then that's one way to just do away with it without having passed another amendment to get rid of it. Yeah.
Right.
Every state has to agree, right? And that's never going to happen.
Well, not every state.
Just enough to get that 270 or 271 electoral college votes, because then whoever wins the majority of
in this case, Hillary would have won. Because all those states that agreed to that. So California has that already, right?
Yeah, we've already passed that. I think New York has too.
Yeah. So
not sure. I want to check on that.
So you guys went for Hillary, obviously, because she won the national vote.
Right. Well, it only can only go in effect when enough states actually do it.
Let me also ask this. I'm asking questions because I don't have the personal knowledge of it. But how much have there have been losses where people did not win the Electoral College, but they won the national vote? Is this the biggest separation ever? 3 million, or it was?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean,
really?
The last time it happened was with, of course, Gore and Bush, and that was where it was just a better, less than 1 million votes, maybe 700,000, something like that.
Yeah. So this is pretty profound if you think about it.
Oh yeah.
That the American people didn't get who they voted for.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
And we have this.
Incredible. They also kept people from voting using false list of felons, and also the cross-state checks, cross-check against states for similar names, and kicked a lot of people that were Democratic.
Okay, but now let's go back and let's look at an election that happened a long time ago, the election of John F. Kennedy. That one was supposedly rigged. That one supposedly was won because of the vote in Chicago, which was supposedly rigged by Mayor Daley.
Just like Putin rigged his.
Yeah.
Kennedy still had the national popular vote. He still won the national popular vote. It was close, but he still.
But if he didn't take Chicago, they say he would have lost that race. It was that close.
Well, yeah, he would have lost Illinois, and then you'd have sort of a Trump-like situation, or yeah.
So
saying dead people voted in that election.
Yeah, well, they say a lot of dead people voted in that election.
Many times.
But because Daley fixed it. And that was, if he had not won Chicago, it probably would have gone to Nixon. It was that close. That was a very close race. I think it was several 100,000 nationally, if I'm not mistaken.
Isn't it sad that we didn't know that till years later?
Yeah. Well, but how do you feel about that? I mean, is this payback? Is Trump payback for Kennedy?
Possibly. I've been watching the Kennedy documentary, and I don't like him so much anymore.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I've been watching it.
Yeah. Wasn't there an implication that Joe Kennedy was involved in that too? That somehow he used his organized crime connections.
He had the same attitude that Trump has.
Yeah.
Joe did.
Yep.
And Joe Jr. too, I believe, also. So Bobby and Johnny might have slowly moved away and been the new generation, but who knows? You know what the other?
I never trusted Bobby Kennedy. Not after he worked for McCarthy. No.
And Teddy had his problems for a long time too.
Well, Teddy had his problems. Chappaquiddick.
That movie's out now.
Yeah.
You know one thing that the Mueller probe is showing us as normal Americans, how much it's basically showing you how much white collar crime never gets investigated, and nobody ever pays for anything except Martha Stewart. There is so much white collar crime going on in the corporate world. Mueller's they could hire thousands of people. It's a way of doing business in our capitalist society. It's sad.
You have to go back to Rutherford B. Hayes, who lost the popular vote in 1876 by 250,000 votes to Samuel Tilden, but won the Electoral College.
Right.
1876.
Well, and I think that's the only. Is that the only other time the Electoral College is not?
No, there were a couple other times, but Bush was really close. 540,000 actually.
Right.
But the population was bigger, and then John Quincy Adams, and then Trump. That's it.
Yeah, Forbin
and Benjamin Harrison.
Forbin writes something we've all known. The JFK and Sam Giancana were both banging the same woman, Judith Exner Campbell.
How many people think of the leaker at the White House as Pence, or Pence's wife?
It's probably their bunny, Marlon Bundo. By the way, Marlon Bundo, #1 book on Amazon, and the Pence book on Marlon Bundo is, I think, #4, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can look it up.
Pence's daughter actually likes both books, and they sent out a post of how their bunny looked good with the little bow tie.
Yeah.
So she said she thought it was cool that both books are out and that both books are going to
The
charity.
difference between one book and the other, however, is that Marlon Bundo in the John Oliver version is a gay bunny, and he falls in love with another gay bunny. And they are chided for being in love with each other, but they can't figure out why, because love is just love. And I have the book, if you want me to read it to you some night. I also got the Audible Books version, which has John Lithgow and what's his name plays Sheldon on the Big Bang Theory. What's his name?
Parsons. Parsons.
Yeah, Jim Parsons.
Yeah.
And it has a whole bunch of very well-known people doing the voices on the narration. So. But it's available on Amazon. It's only $11. I don't know how much the other one is.
The audio book's only $1.39.
Yeah. So you can add on the audio book, and it's all going to gay causes. I can't remember the name of the foundation that supports gay rights and gay advocacy and gay help and so on. The Trevor Foundation.
Trevor,
That's
okay.
it. Yeah.
That's cool.
And so, I mean. You're giving to a good cause while at the same time telling Pence, fuck you, your book doesn't sell.
But it's funny that Pence's daughter is supporting both books.
Yeah.
And saying they're both going to good causes.
Yeah, well, how old is his daughter?
I think she's like, she looks like in the picture she's at least in her late teens, maybe.
Yeah. I wonder how her father feels about that. Because I have to hand
the Cheneys went through that, right?
I have to hand it to Oliver. You don't know what it takes to get a book put out. He must have known about the Pence book months ago, so they would have enough time to put together this book in order to sell it. Okay.
But they have to see it too to get an idea of how the artwork was and everything.
And by the way, the Oliver version has gone into its second printing already. So
there's no more books available as of today.
I'm sure you can get a Kindle version of it. No, I guess you can't get a Kindle version because mine doesn't work on my Kindle.
It says here there's a Kindle version on Amazon.
I know, but it didn't. It won't play. It says it won't play on my Kindle. However, it does play on my computer here on my Mac. So I was able to read it to my grandchildren. Hey, Tom, good seeing you again. Always good seeing you. And as for Jeff, always wonderful to hear from you as well. Kevin,
I'm gonna try to make it home tomorrow.
Yeah, you have a good time trying that one.
You can see me at the airport.
Yeah. It was snowing all day today, all day. How is it down there, Rob?
We had snow all day, but it tapered off, and I think we got no more than like 4 or 5 inches.
Yeah. I'll check the depth of the snow here if I could pull my dick out, I could get a better reading on it. Yes, Kevin, thank you. Of course, always thank you to Tim for calling, and of course Rob and Bob Eberth and Ray Renati. This has been a lot of fun tonight. And also Phil, we have to say, Phil, the trooper that he is, was here. Why don't you all give a big wave goodbye so these people can see your lovely faces. And hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow night. Bye-bye. That's our citizens panel for tonight, folks. It's a very simple little process we have here. And you can be part of the citizens panel. Just go to gabnet.net, and it will tell you everything you need to know about doing that. In the meantime, stay tuned next for the intersection with Jack and Amy. That's followed at 1 o'clock this morning by Connections, and that will be followed tomorrow night, if he's hasn't got car problems again, with our good friend Damian Chaplin with The Exchange, and then I'll be back again tomorrow night at 10. Same time, same station in life, and in the meantime, if you see her, as always, I'm stalling until I get my hand in the right place. Tell her I love her, okay? Bye.